Thank you so much for all your encouragement. It was definitely a little intimidating to put it up, but I'm really encouraged by everything that you've written to me and every which way in which you have reacted. So, based on that encouragement, I am going to keep on reading bits and parts of this book. It's not too long a book. It's 224 pages, so it should get finished pretty quickly. I'll try to upload as regularly as I can. And yes, I am loving the thought of taking this journey with all of you. So, of course, I went back and listened to my own recording later after having sent it out to all of you. And I realized I had made, a couple of my pronunciations were not quite right. And of course, that's been bothering me. So I think I said encompass, and I think that's the wrong. I'm putting the stress on the wrong parts of the word. I believe it should be encompass. But then again, I have such mixed pronunciations now with the Indian English and a little bit of American English coming in that thoroughly confused. The other one, and I have to give Ma the for I have to give it to her that she helped me understand this, that when I pronounced Haworth, that was actually not correct. It's supposed to be Haworth. So that's where the Bronte sisters, that's where they grew up. So, yeah, with that, oh yes, I missed another thing, which is, every book has a dedication, and every dedication I feel like it carries a lot of weight with it. Thornyhold was dedicated, and I'll read it off now, to the memory of my mother and father, with love and gratitude. So, I guess all of us feel the same about our parents. So, I guess part of this dedication is, let's say, an expression of gratitude to our parents. They constantly try their best, and they give their all for us. So here's to all of you. And one more thing, I called her Ms. Mary Stewart yesterday, and I was looking it up, and I saw that that is not correct. She should be called Lady Mary Stewart. So, or I don't know what the Lady Mary, maybe, I don't know what the convention is of that. So yeah, those are, I guess, the pre-notes to the reading today. So yes, let's begin the second part, and we're still on the first chapter. Until I was 7 years old, we had lived in a small village of 200 souls or thereabouts. It was an unimportant little parish, and we were very poor, but the place was lovely. My father's work was easy, and the house was compact and comfortable. The vicarage was ancient, low and white, with a white rose rambling over the porch and ivied walls with beds of sweet violets beneath. There was a summer house set in a lilac grove, and a tennis court carefully kept by my father, where occasionally neighbours would come to play. The parish consisted mainly of farmland, farms scattered through a few square miles, with only one main road through it. Cars were rare. One walked or went by pony trap. There were no buses, and the railway station was 2 miles away. Only 7 years, but even now, after a lifetime 10 times as long, some memories are printed, still vivid and exact through the overall smudging of times gone by and best forgotten. The village green with its grazing goats and donkeys, and the great church at its centre. Huge trees everywhere, on the green, in the cottage gardens, studding the circling meadows, shading the dusty road. The road itself with the deep triple ruts made by wheels and hoofs, winding between its thick borders of hedgerow flowers. Sunshine hot on the paving stones of our backyard, where the hens strutted and the cat lay dozing. The ringing of the smith's hammer from the forge next door, and the sharp smell of singeing hoofs as he shod the farmer's horses. The vicarage garden with its peonies and violas, and the columbines like doves roosting. The clouds of lilac, the hops climbing over the door of the schoolhouse at the foot of the garden, and the double yellow roses by the steps that led to the tennis lawn. But no people. Those golden memories, I suppose significantly, hold no single person except one. There is no smudging of the picture on the day when I first met my mother's cousin, Geillis. She was my godmother, so presumably I had encountered her at the font, but the first time that I recall talking with her was on a summer's day when I was 6 years old. It cannot have been my birthday, because that is in September, but it was some sort of special day, an occasion to which I had looked forward with all the starved longing of a lonely childhood, and which, when it came, was just like any other day, which meant that I spent it alone, because my father was out on his parish visits, my mother was too busy to bother with me, and of course I was not allowed to play with the village children. I doubt if I was allowed to leave the garden either, but I had done so. At the bottom of our vegetable garden, behind the schoolhouse, was my own private gap in the fence. Beyond it stretched a long slope of meadowland, studded like a park with groups of great trees, and at the foot of the slope, backed by a little wood, lay a pond. For no reason except that its bright mirror made a point to aim for, I wandered downhill to the water's edge and sat down in the grass. I believe that I remember every moment of that afternoon, though at first it was only a blur, a richness of colour like something in an impressionist painting. There was a confusion of sound, birdsong from the wood beyond, the hedgerow, and grasshoppers fiddling in the long grass near at hand. It was hot, and the smell of the earth, of the crushed grasses, of the slightly stagnant pond water, drugged the sleepy day. I sat dreaming, eyes wide open, focused on the glimmer of the pool where the lazy stream fed it. Something happened. Did the sun move? What I seem to remember is a sudden flash from the pool, as if a fish had leaped and scattered the light. The dreamy haze of colour sharpened. Everything suddenly seemed outlined in light. The dog daisies, white and gold and taller than I was, stirred and swayed above my head as if combed through by a strong breeze. In its wake the air stilled again, thick with scents, The birds had stopped singing, the grasshoppers were silent. I sat there as still as a snail on the stem, in the middle of a full and living world, and saw it for the first time, and for the first time knew myself to be a part of it. I looked up, and Cousin Geillis was standing there. She cannot have been much more than 40, but to me, of course, she seemed old, as my parents in their 30s were old. She had something of my mother's look, the proud mouth and nose, the piercing grey-green eyes, the erect carriage, but where my mother's hair was golden red, Cousin Geillis's was dark. Clouds of it swirled and swathed up with tortoise-shell pins. I don't remember what she wore except that it was dark and voluminous. She sank down beside me on the grass. She seemed to manage it without disturbing the dog daisies. She ran a forefinger up the stem of one daisy, and a ladybird came off onto the finger and clung there. "Look," she said, "quickly. Count the spots." Young children take the strangest things for granted, a double-edged innocence that can be totally misunderstood by the adult using the guidelines of maturity. I saw nothing odd about Cousin Geillis's sudden appearance or her greeting. It was part of the child's world of magical appearances and vanishings, timed inevitably as they are for child's need. I counted 7. 7-spot coccinella, agreed Cousin Geillis. Now, hadn't you better warn her? Instantly the need seemed urgent. I sang obediently. "Ladybird, ladybird, fly away home. Your house is on fire, your children all gone. All but one, and her name is Jill, and she's quite safe on the windowsill." The ladybird flew. I said anxiously, "It's only a song, isn't it?" "Yes, she's a very clever little beetle, and she lives in the meadows and gets all her babies out and flying before anyone can burn the stubble or cut the hay." "Do you know who I am, Jilly?" "Your mummy's cousin Jilly. She has a photo of you." "So she has. What were you doing down here?" I must have looked apprehensive. Quite apart from the forbidden adventure outside the garden, I was not supposed to waste time dreaming. But fixed by Cousin Geillis's straight gaze, I told the truth. "Just thinking." "What about?" Miraculously, she sounded not only unruffled, but interested. I looked round me. The illuminated missile of grass and flowers were dissolving again into a formless, impressionist blur. "I don't know. Things." It was a kind of answer that usually brought a sharp rebuke. Cousin Geillis nodded as if she had just taken in every word of my detailed explanation. "Whether there are tadpoles in the pond, for instance?" "Yes, oh yes. Are there?" "Probably. Why don't we look?" We looked, and there were minnows too, and a couple of sticklebacks. And then Cousin Geillis pointed to where, at the foot of a tall reed, the surface of the water bulged suddenly, rounded to a bubble, then broke to let a brown, grub-like creature emerge. Slowly, laboriously testing the strange element, the ugly creature inched its way up the stem till, parting with its reflection, it clung clear of the water, exposed to the drying sun. "What is it?" "It's called a nymph. Watch now, Jilly. Just watch." The creature moved. The ugly head went back as if in pain. I did not see what happened, but all at once there were 2 bodies there on the stem. The split shell that had been the nymph, and climbing from the empty helmet of the head, another body, newly born, supple and alive, a slimmer, bigger version of the first. It clung there above the wrinkled discard of its muddy skin, while the sunlight stroked it plumped it with liquid life, and drew the crumpled silk of the wings out of its humped shoulders, and slowly pulled them straight, taut and shining and webbed, with veins as delicate as hairs, while from somewhere, it seemed from the air itself, colour pulsed into the drab body till it glimmered blue as a splinter of sky. The wings stretched, feeling the air. The insect's body lifted, straightened, then into the light, like light, it was gone. It was a dragonfly, wasn't it? I found myself whispering. It was. Ishna Kirulia. Say it. Ishna Kirulia? But how? You said it was an imp. But was there a dragonfly inside? Yes. The nymph, not imp, lives at the bottom of the pond, in the dark, and feeds on whatever it can get, till one day it finds it can climb out into the light and grow its wings and fly. What you've just watched, finished Cousin Geillis, cheerfully, is a perfectly ordinary miracle. You mean magic? Did you make it happen? Not that, no. Some things I can make happen, but not that. Apt though it was. Someday, if I'm right, something very like that miracle will be needed. Another nymph, another way, another day. A quick bright glance. Do you understand me? No. But you can make things happen. Are you really a witch then, Cousin Jilly? What makes you say that? Have they said anything at home? No. Mummy just said you might be coming to stay, and Daddy said you weren't very desirable. She laughed, rose, and pulled me up after her, spiritually, I hope, rather than physically. No, never mind, child. We'd better get you home, hadn't we? Come. But the afternoon was not over yet. We went slowly back through the meadow, and it seemed natural that we should come across a hedgehog with her 4 young ones, rustling busily through the grass, rootling with long, shining snouts. Mrs. Tiddlywinkle, I breathed, and this time Cousin Geillis laughed and did not correct me. One of them found a snail and ate it with cheerful crunching. They went close by us, totally without fear, then moved off. Afterwards, on the way back, Cousin Geillis picked one flower after another and told me about them, so that by the time we reached the vicarage, I knew the names and habits of some 20 plants. And somehow, though I should have been punished for climbing out of the garden, my mother said nothing, and all was well. Cousin Geillis stayed for a few days. Most of them, I believe, she spent with me. It was halcyon weather, as always in those far-away summers, and we were out all day. And during our day-long picnic walks, as I see now, the foundation of my life was laid. When she left, the light went out of the fields and woods, but what she had kindled in me remained. It was the last of the lovely summers. The following spring, my father was moved by his bishop to a new parish, a big, ugly, mining parish where the pit heap and the smoke and the blaze of the coke ovens and the noise of shunting engines filled the days and nights, and we settled into the cold discomfort of the house among the graveyards.